My problem is that 1 in 3 young people in the UK, disadvantaged young people rather, in the UK, leave school with basic qualifications. I'll say that again if you didn't get it the first time. 1 in 3 young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, that's low income, working class, leave school with basic qualifications. Now, this is a system that we all commit to spending between 16 and 18 years of our life to by force, right? We all have to go through an education system. It's illegal if you're not entitled to it in the UK, which I think is progress based on where we were over 100 years ago. But yet still, we failed to help those of us young people who are most disadvantaged to leave school with something. And then you compare that to a backdrop of looking at the most privileged children in the UK, and you recognise that 96% of them leave school not only with basic qualifications like GCSEs and A-levels, but they go on to our greatest universities like the University of Plymouth. So you've got 96% at this end, and just 1 in 3 scraping educational achievement at the other end. Why is it important to me? Because it wasn't so long ago that I was one of those 1 in 3 young people. I'll take you back to when I was 14. I was beginning of year 10, or end of year 9, beginning of year 10, 2 years away from leaving compulsory education. And I was at risk of not leaving with anything. And to be honest, I didn't really care. It didn't make a difference to me. Why? Because I was one of 7 children, one of 35 cousins, and more of them went to prison than on to university. And to me, I hadn't seen a different side of life, so they looked okay. They turned out all right. They were surviving. They got jobs. And I just thought, if Craig, my brother, left school with nothing and he's all right, Chantal, similar, my older sister, one of my role models, left school with nothing and she's all right, then it doesn't really matter if I left school with nothing. Yes, I had many teachers saying, Sharla, you're so bright, why don't you try harder? You come in school once a week, you walked around like you know it all, you don't come back. And out of respect, I agreed. I stood there and nodded. But really, I just wanted to say, I don't really care, to be honest, miss or mister. And it wasn't until I met someone from a completely different background. So her name was Pavan, and she was from a very middle-class family. Didn't have loads of money, but they were very middle class. She knew she wanted to be a doctor. She is a doctor today. Her brother wanted to be a lawyer. He went to law school. And it was that kind of progressive family that understood the power of education. And she was young. She was 14, a little bit older than me. And when she came to my school, she genuinely couldn't understand that someone who she thought was as bright as her would leave school with nothing. I genuinely couldn't understand that someone who I thought was as bright as me had such bad trainers. She was off. And over time, I laughed at her trainers, and quite painfully, she laughed at my grades. We developed a relationship where she said, look, trainers you can laugh about, but grades you can't, because this will shape the rest of your life. Don't let the next 2 years go by and you kind of let me say I told you so, because that's not cool. Let me help you. And she drew this big, as 14-year-olds and their profanities go, this big pile of poo. I remember being in French class, this big pile of poo. She called it the rude 4-letter word. And then she started mapping my subjects against them. So geography was at the bottom, because I hadn't been to a geography class in 3 months and didn't do any coursework. Then French, because gosh, that was just way off. Teacher and I didn't quite gel. And I just recognized that all of my subjects that I'd chosen had not gone past the halfway mark on this pile of poo. And I was just quite shocked, because I thought, wow, she's right. I have been living for 14 years and I'm not going to show anything. So she started off by taking science, which was down the bottom, and she said, let me just help you with your coursework. And science for me was almost like it is for a lot of young people, and we accept it, which is a shame, that it's difficult. It's the one subject that you can laugh about, right? Normally young people, if they say you can't dance, it's a diss and you don't find that funny. But if you say you're not very good at science, you kind of accept that. It's similar to maths. So it was a barrier subject. It was something I'd always put in a box, and she unpicked it for me. She helped me to understand the relevance of chemistry, of biology, and dare I say, of physics. And over time, which was such a struggle, she helped me to slow things down, what I struggled to do in school. And she helped me to care. So over 2 years, she went from science to maths to English. And by the end of those 2 years, I went from being a kid who was at risk of leaving school with very few qualifications like her family to getting straight A's and A stars, which was just transformational. I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? And the rest is history. I went on to do tough science A-levels, went on to study biochemistry at King's College London, and I just thought, wow, what a major achievement. She didn't leave me with grades alone. She left me with perseverance, with discipline, with passion, with hope. And that was just mind-boggling. So anyway, I get to King's, and I recognise that King's in London is a couple miles down the road from where I grew up. And foolish to me, I just didn't think it would be much different from where I grew up. And for those of you who know London, I felt like there was Elephant and Castle down the road, which is a mile away, very high proportion of African Caribbeans, very deprived. And then there was King's College London in London Bridge. But that was very white, middle class, very posh. Everyone spoke in a particular way. And I couldn't believe that there was such a disparity between the two groups. And I felt like someone drew a circle around that institute and said, no working class people can cross this barrier, which was a huge shame. And I started to think, what can I do? It was kind of selfish, to be honest. I wanted more people like me to go to university. And I went to a local school, and I just said to the head teacher, please, can I help? So this is my journey. The only reason why I'm here is because someone else cared and used their time to transform my life. Please, can I help to do that for someone else? And that's where my organisation came from. It came from university students who gave a damn, who recognised that education was powerful because it got them to where they are, who went back into local deprived communities and transform the lives of children by just teaching them basic stuff that you got so easily, that not many young people get so easily from backgrounds like mine. At the moment, we're working with 3,000 kids across the UK, and that brings me on to my next thing, which is my call to action. That call to action is, you don't have to be at university to change your life. We had a campaign that said, in 90 minutes, you can talk about what Kim Kardashian was wearing on the weekend, or you can change your life. And that is because you can spend a short amount of time going back to your local school and looking at how you can support young people. It could be something like this, given an assembly, talking about your passion for your subject. It could be what Pavan did to me, sitting down and offering your time to help them achieve their grades. It could be what I asked a billionaire to do the other day, which is just speak about, he wasn't very as successful as one might think at school, but just talk about their journey in their life. It doesn't have to be academic, but it's about connecting with young people so they're not feeling as though they're in generations old, kind of generations after generations worth of underachievement and failure. What really hurts me about the education system at the moment is, the biggest thing is the fact that I didn't recognise there was a problem. And so many young people from those backgrounds, and their parents, believe it or not, don't recognise there's a problem. Why? Because we've been hundreds of years where we've accepted failure. We've accepted that 1 in 3 kids can leave school with GCSEs and the other 2 out of 3 don't. Can you imagine if we applied that stat to any other industry? They'd go bust. Imagine if 1 in 3 of your mobile phones didn't work. Every time you spent, I don't know, £400 or so on a contract, your phone didn't work. Can you imagine that? The only benefit that I think would come out of that is the fact that phone theft would probably go down, right? You see someone, you're taking your phone, and you go, oh, don't worry, it's the one that doesn't work, it's all right, you can take it. We wouldn't get to iPhone 6, we wouldn't get past iPhone 1. Because 2 out of 3 people would be so dissatisfied with a mobile phone, bad news spreads much further than good news, right? And I just think it's a real waste. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy that my journey has brought me to a place where I can talk about it. But imagine if I hadn't met Pavan. Imagine if the young people who are disadvantaged, that live less than a mile down the road from all of you, I promise you, disadvantage is a huge problem in the UK. Imagine if none of them had met you or understood what the power of Plymouth University is doing and how it's shaping our knowledge of the UK. On that note, I'll end on a few thank yous. So thank you to Pavan. Thank you to my team who've made us grow to a place where we're helping 3,000 kids. Thank you to people who've helped me go from someone who's passionate to an entrepreneur, someone who has set up a business to enable our work to be sustainable. And thank you to you guys. I think ideas is where it all happens. So thank you for listening. Thanks.